Behind every person you see smiling on the street, posting highlights online, or talking about success, there is often a brutal past that shaped them. A story of failure, disappointment, and lost chances that almost no one sees. Because we live in a world obsessed with winners, we forget that the ones who look broken, the ones who seem invisible, the ones who failed, are often carrying the deepest truths about life. And today, I want to take you on a journey through that hidden world. The world of someone who failed, who stumbled so many times that the weight of their past became the silent language of their existence. This is not just their story, it's our story. Because failure in its brutal honesty belongs to all of us. Before we go further, let me ask something of you. Before we jump into the topic, share in the comments where you're watching from and what your personal struggles with failure have been. Maybe it's a dream that didn't work out, a relationship that collapsed, or a version of yourself you feel you can never live up to. I want you to reflect on that as you watch. And now, put your device on full screen, settle in, and watch until the end. Because what we're about to uncover may just change the way you see failure forever. Failure is brutal because it feels final. When you fail, especially at something you've poured your heart into, it feels like the world has closed a door and locked it permanently. Psychologists call this catastrophic thinking, when your brain interprets one setback as the end of everything. But here's the truth. Failure is rarely final. What makes it brutal is not the failure itself, but the meaning we attach to it. We believe it defines us, that it stamps a label on our forehead for life, and that belief can follow us like a shadow. Think about someone who once dreamed big. They wanted to be more. An artist, a business owner, a writer, or maybe just a person who lived with dignity. At first, they start with fire in their chest. They work late nights. They tell themselves, "This is my chance." But then slowly, life intervenes. Maybe the bills stack up. Maybe people laugh at them. Maybe the result doesn't come even after all the effort. And then comes the moment, the big collapse. That single event where it feels like the dream shattered in front of them. That's the brutal past we're talking about. Not just a mistake, but a collapse so heavy that it scars how you see yourself. The world remembers Thomas Edison for inventing the light bulb, but we forget that he famously failed thousands of times before succeeding. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper because he was told he lacked imagination. Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television. The pattern is everywhere. Behind every name we admire lies a brutal past soaked in rejection and failure. And if that's true for them, what does it mean for us? It means that failure, as brutal as it feels, is not evidence of worthlessness. It's evidence of being alive, of trying. And yet, society doesn't celebrate this stage. We don't applaud the person whose business went bankrupt. We don't cheer for the student who failed their exams. We don't comfort the man who tried and lost everything. Instead, we quietly look away, and that silence makes failure heavier than it needs to be. But what if we saw failure differently? Psychology offers us a powerful reframe. There is something called the growth mindset, a concept developed by Carol Dweck. It suggests that people who believe their abilities can be developed through effort and learning are more likely to succeed over time. On the other hand, those with a fixed mindset, who see failure as proof they are not good enough, tend to stay stuck. The brutal past of a failed person often comes down to which mindset they carried afterward. Did they see the failure as a wall or as a stepping stone? Still, let's be honest here. It's easy to talk about growth when the pain has already passed. But when you're in the middle of failure, it feels suffocating. Nights are longer, silence is louder. Every little reminder of your failure feels like a dagger. You scroll online and see people your age succeeding, and it cuts deep. You ask yourself questions you can't answer. Why not me? Why can't I get it right? What's wrong with me? This inner dialogue is part of the brutal past. It's not just the event, it's the years of replaying it in your head. Here's where something fascinating happens. Neuroscience shows that when we fail, our brain's error detection system lights up. That sting you feel when you mess up isn't just in your head. It's a biological alarm designed to help you adjust. But modern culture has conditioned us to run from that feeling, to numb it, to pretend it never happened. The person who failed often tries to erase the memory, but in doing so, they erase the lessons too. The brutal past of failure is not simply about what happened externally. It's about the inner exile, the way a person starts living outside their own life. They stop trusting themselves. They stop setting goals. They shrink their dreams so small the disappointment cannot enter. And in that shrinking, they lose the very spark that made them alive. But here's the paradox. The brutal past can also be the beginning of the most authentic life you will ever live. Because once you've been through failure, you can no longer be fooled by illusions. You learn the difference between what looks shiny on the outside and what feels real inside. You learn who truly supports you and who only applauds when you're winning. Failure cleans the stage. It leaves behind only what is raw and real. When you meet someone who has failed deeply, really failed, you can often feel it in their presence. They carry a humility, an authenticity, a lack of pretense. They've been burned, but they are not hollow. They may still be rebuilding, but their words carry weight because they come from the underground of human experience. And so, the question is not whether you will fail. The question is, what will you do with your failures? Will they bury you, or will they become the soil that grows a stronger version of you? Now let me tell you something personal. I once came across a man who had started 3 businesses, all of which collapsed within a few years. He had lost everything: money, reputation, even relationships. By every societal standard, he was a failure. When I asked him how he lived with that, he told me something unforgettable. He said, "The world thinks my past is brutal, but I think of it as my teacher. Success would have made me proud, but failure made me human." That struck me because it reveals a secret about the brutal past. It is often the birthplace of wisdom. History remembers the winners, but wisdom is carried by those who have lost and still chosen to continue. And maybe that's where we need to pause for now, because the brutal past of a failed person is not a closed book. It is a story still being written. And in the next part, we will dive even deeper into how failure rewires the human heart, why some never recover while others rise stronger, and what science and philosophy both say about rebuilding after collapse. The brutal past of someone who failed is not just a story about the mistakes they made. It is also about the scars those mistakes left behind, and how those scars shape the choices they make for the rest of their life. You see, failure does not end when the event ends. It echoes, it lingers, it creeps into small moments, into self-doubt, into hesitation. A person who failed once may hesitate to try again, not because they don't want to, but because the memory of falling is so vivid. They remember the humiliation, the looks from others, the disappointment in themselves. That memory becomes heavier than the actual event. But here's something important to realize. The past only becomes brutal when we resist it, when we try to rewrite it in our minds, when we fight against what already happened. We suffer twice. First in the failure itself, and second in the endless replay of it. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "People are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." A failed person's brutal past is often carried like a heavy backpack. But what if that backpack is not meant to be dragged forever? What if it is only meant to be unpacked, examined, and then left behind? Let me tell you why this matters. Studies in psychology show that when people write down their failures and reflect on them, their stress levels decrease and their resilience increases. This practice, called expressive writing, helps the brain process the experience instead of avoiding it. Avoidance is what turns failure into a brutal past. Acceptance is what turns it into wisdom. But acceptance doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means telling yourself the truth without shame. Yes, I failed. Yes, it hurt. Yes, I wish it went differently. And yet, here I am, still breathing, still capable of trying again. That moment of acceptance is the bridge from the brutal past to a more hopeful future. Now think about the people you admire most. Are they perfect? Do they have spotless records? Or do they have stories of failure, rejection, and collapse? The answer is obvious. What makes them admirable is not that they avoided failure, but that they allowed failure to shape them into someone wiser, stronger, more compassionate. But what about the ones who never recover? What about those who carry the brutal past like a permanent wound? This happens when failure becomes fused with identity. Instead of saying, "I failed," they begin to say, "I am a failure." That small shift in language makes all the difference. One is an event, the other is a self-definition. And once you define yourself by your failures, every new opportunity feels like a risk of proving that identity true again. That's why some people never try again. Not because they don't have the skills, not because they don't have the opportunities, but because their identity has become entangled with their past. To them, the brutal past is not just history. It is who they are. But here's a liberating truth. Identities can change. Neuroscience shows that our brains are not fixed. They have what's called neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire, to form new connections, to learn and unlearn. Just as your brain learned to associate yourself with failure, it can also learn to associate yourself with growth, resilience, and possibility. The brutal past may never disappear, but it does not need to define the future. Let's step back and look at this from another angle. Culturally, we are taught to avoid failure. Schools often reward perfection and punish mistakes. Workplaces value results but rarely celebrate the experiments that didn't work. Social media amplifies only the highlight reel of life. And yet, if we look at nature itself, failure is everywhere. Seeds fail to sprout. Animals fail in their hunts. Weather patterns fail to be predictable. But through those failures, life adapts. It evolves. It continues. Why should humans be any different? A brutal past is painful, yes, but it is also natural. It is part of the cycle of growth. Every tree has broken branches. Every mountain has scars of erosion. Every river has bends where it crashed against resistance. And yet, we still call them beautiful. Why then do we look at our own scars and call them ugly? Here is the paradox of failure. The more you try to hide it, the more power it has over you. But the more you embrace it, the more it transforms. That's why some of the most inspiring speakers, leaders, and thinkers openly share their failures. They no longer hide the brutal past. They use it. They let others see it. And in doing so, they turn their shame into service. You might be wondering, what does this mean for you? Maybe you're sitting here with your own brutal past playing in the back of your mind. Maybe it's a failed exam, a failed marriage, a failed business, or just the quiet sense that you haven't lived up to your own potential. If that's you, let me tell you this. You are not alone. The feeling of failure is one of the most universal human experiences. What separates those who rise from those who remain stuck is not the failure itself, but the story they tell about it. And this is where something beautiful emerges. You get to choose that story. You can continue to say, "I failed, therefore I am nothing." Or you can say, "I failed, therefore I am human." And being human means I can learn, adapt, and try again. That choice of narrative may sound small, but it reshapes your entire future. Let's look at an example. J.K. Rowling, before writing the Harry Potter series, was rejected by 12 publishers. At the time, she was living in poverty, feeling like a failure. But instead of defining herself by those rejections, she used them as proof that she still had more to give. And eventually, her story changed. Not because the past disappeared, but because she chose a new meaning for it. You see, the brutal past is not a sentence. It's a chapter. And like any chapter, it can lead to another one if you are willing to keep writing. So what does it take then to truly move forward? What are the practical, tangible steps to begin walking when your feet feel cemented to the ground of your past? It is one thing to understand the theory of failure as a teacher, and another entirely to gather the strength to take the next step. The journey from being defined by your failures to being refined by them is built on a foundation of deliberate daily practices. Psychologists and those who have navigated this difficult terrain often speak of 3 essential pillars. 3 companions for the road ahead: self-compassion, perseverance, and perspective. The first, and perhaps the most critical, is self-compassion. This is far more than just a comforting word. It is a radical act of rebellion against the inner critic that failure so often unleashes. Self-compassion means actively stopping the internal monologue of blame and shame. It means pausing in a moment of pain and asking yourself a simple, transformative question. If my dearest friend came to me with this exact story of failure, feeling this exact same shame and devastation, what would I say to them? You would not mete out harsh judgment. You would not list their every flaw. You would not tell them they are a lost cause. You would likely offer a gentle touch, a listening ear, and words of kindness that acknowledge their pain while affirming their inherent worth. You would remind them that they are human, that missteps are part of the shared human contract, and that their value is not contingent on a single outcome. Self-compassion is the decision to extend that same profound, unconditional kindness to yourself. It is the conscious act of switching from being your own most brutal prosecutor to becoming your own most steadfast advocate. It is the soft soil that allows new seeds of confidence to take root, replacing the barren, hardened ground of self-condemnation. The second pillar is perseverance. This is the raw, gritty, and often unglamorous work of standing back up. It's the act of trying again, not because you feel suddenly brave and fearless, but precisely when you don't. Perseverance is the courage that manifests as action, even when every fiber of your being is screaming to stay down, to hide, to avoid the risk of another humiliation. It is the quiet understanding that the pain of trying and falling again is, in the long run, far more bearable than the slow, soul-crushing agony of giving up entirely. Perseverance is not a single heroic leap. It is 1,000 small, trembling steps. It is the deep breath you take before sending another resume after a dozen rejections. It is the decision to have a difficult conversation after a previous one ended in disaster. It is the choice to believe that your next attempt is not doomed to repeat the past, but is instead informed by it. This is the muscle that is only built through the strain of use, and failure provides the heaviest, most effective weight. The third and final pillar is perspective. This is the mental and emotional lens through which you choose to view your story. It is the conscious effort to zoom out from the blinding, pixelated detail of your failure and see it within the vast, sprawling landscape of your entire life. Perspective means actively reminding yourself that this failure is a single chapter, perhaps a dark and difficult one, but it is not the entire book. It is a single event, a moment in time, not the permanent definition of your identity. Cultivating perspective means looking for the evidence of your entire existence. The past successes, however small, the relationships that sustain you, the inherent strengths you possess that have nothing to do with this particular setback. It is about understanding that while this failure feels like a mountain, it is one peak in a vast and varied range, and your journey will take you through many more valleys and over many more summits. It is the intellectual and emotional anchor that prevents you from being completely capsized by a single storm. And when you begin to weave these three pillars together, when you treat yourself with kindness, continue to take action despite the fear, and view your journey from a wider angle, a profound shift begins to occur. You start to see that maybe, in the strangest and most unexpected way, the brutal past is not a curse to be escaped, but a difficult, unasked for, yet invaluable gift. It is a gift because it is only by being humbled by failure, by having our pride and our certainties stripped away, that we learn true humility. It is the end of the illusion of our own infallibility and the beginning of a genuine connection with the struggling humanity around us. It is only by feeling the profound sting of our own disappointments that we can genuinely understand the pain in another person's eyes, that we learn the deep, resonant skill of empathy. Our own brokenness becomes a bridge to the brokenness in others, fostering connections that are based on authenticity, not on performance. And most importantly, it is only through the searing fire of failure that the illusions we built our lives upon are burned away. The chase for superficial validation, the desire for status, the pursuit of goals that were never truly ours to begin with, these are often consumed in the flames. What remains, standing stark and clear in the ashes, is the unshakable core of what we truly value. We discover what actually matters: integrity, connection, growth, love, the quiet satisfaction of effort, the resilience of the human spirit. When all the noise fades, failure leaves us with the signal of our own truth. So let me leave you with this thought, a final reflection to carry with you long after this has ended. If you have failed, if your past feels brutal, if your dreams feel so broken you can scarcely recognize the pieces, I am asking you, I am imploring you, do not see this as the final period of your story. Do not let the weight of what went wrong convince you that the book is closed. Instead, I want you to make a radical shift in perspective, one that might feel impossible right now but is nonetheless true. See this not as a tomb, but as soil. Yes, soil. It looks like dirt, common and disregarded, something we walk upon without a second thought. It is dark, it is messy, and it is what remains when things have fallen apart and decomposed. But within that very substance, within that raw and unglamorous foundation, lies a dormant, pulsing potential. It is saturated with the nutrients of experience, rich with the minerals of hard-won lessons, and it holds the moisture of tears shed that now water a deeper understanding of yourself and the world. This soil of your past is not sterile. It is fertile beyond measure. Your brutal past may feel like nothing more than dirt clinging to your hands right now, a stain you desperately wish to wash away. You look at it and see only the mess, the collapse, the evidence of things that did not grow. But in time, with the patient, persistent turning of days and the slow, steady warmth of your own enduring spirit, this very ground can become the anchor, the bedrock from which your strongest, most resilient, and most authentic self finally emerges. It will be a self that does not stand on a fragile pedestal of perfection, but one that is rooted deep in the earth of real human experience. A self that can bend in the storm without breaking because its foundations have already withstood the earthquake. And when that day comes, and it will come, not as a sudden explosion of light, but as a gradual dawn you one day realize has arrived, you will not hide your failures in a locked box of shame. You will not speak of them in hushed, apologetic tones. You will carry them with you, not as shackles, but as medals of honor. You will speak of them with a quiet pride, because you will finally understand that they are not insignias of weakness or stupidity or inadequacy. They are the evidence, the living proof that you dared to try. They are the testament that you truly lived, that you felt a desire so potent you were willing to risk the devastating pain of not achieving it. They are the scars that map the courage you had to step boldly into the unknown, to venture into territories where there were no guarantees, while others chose the safety of the shore, the comfort of the familiar, the quiet regret of never having sailed at all. So the next time you look over your shoulder at the landscape of your past, do not call it brutal. Do not grant it that kind of power. Reframe it. Rename it. Call it the teacher. Call it the refiner's fire. Call it the necessary wilderness. Because maybe, just maybe, we have been looking at this entire concept backwards our entire lives. Perhaps failure is not the opposite of success, a rival force to be defeated. Perhaps it is not even a detour on the road to success. Perhaps it is something far more integral, far more profound. Failure is the secret doorway into a more meaningful kind of achievement. It is the hidden passage into resilience, the unmarked gate that leads to empathy, the arduous path that winds its way to a wisdom that cannot be taught, only earned. It is the secret doorway into a life of depth, of character, of substance that cannot be purchased or faked. It is the secret doorway into your own true, unshakable strength. It is the secret doorway into everything that ultimately matters.